title screen with an abstract image.
Hello and welcome to the Family Agency Leadership Academy, peer-to-peer support discussion. Join a diverse group of family leaders and child welfare agency staff as they discuss the benefits of peer support programs in child welfare.
Throughout the video, alternating visuals are shown of the discussion participants speaking. Tony Parsons, Young Adult Consultant from Capacity Building Center for States.
Now I want to move us into discussing peer-to-peer supports. This is something that has in most recent years become a very hot topic within child welfare, and so we thought it was important to address it here today. It might be an obvious question, but I still think it bears asking. What are some of the benefits of peer support programs? And, what are some good examples of what those can look like? And so, Eddie, I know this is a place you've done a lot of great work, so I'd really like to start with you.
Eddie Torres, parent leader from New Hampshire Division for Children, Youth, and Families.
So this is a subject I could talk to you all day about, but the importance of peer-to-peer supports, it creates safety for people that are probably in some of the worst time in their life, or that are really dealing with a lot of struggles. They're very fearful. There's stigma. There's trauma that's unresolved. They may be in a hardship. Maybe they're feeling dehumanized, and feeling the effects of bias. So having someone that can relate to them, someone that's been there, someone that understands, that can speak to them on their level, is so important because it's going to improve our engagement. And ultimately, that improves the quality of visits with our staff, with our workers. It helps us to get down to the nitty gritty and start doing real work so that we can have improved outcomes. I think it gets kids home faster, which is huge, because we know, our foster care system is taxed. Residential homes are taxed, and we want to get kids home, right? We want to preserve families, and working with a peer-to-peer support person just makes things so much better and easier, and it improves relationships. It encourages connections and trust building. I have seen foster parents and birth parents not get along because they didn't understand, and watching them, after doing it the right way, being like, okay, my peer support person coached me, and now I'm approaching this a different way. I'm not going in there mad, and with an attitude. I'm going in there with grace and being thankful that my child is being cared for by someone, not automatically thinking that they just want to adopt my child and take them away from me, because that happens a lot, right? Or that they think that you're inadequate, right? Because you're not an A parent, you're maybe a C or a D, that the best person that can take care of the child is you, right? You just may need some help along the way. You just need some tools in your toolbox. And our peer support can help get that done faster, and ultimately also reduce recidivism. People will boomerang back into our systems, right? They come back. But if we did it right the first time, then that might not have happened. And developing it, I've identified parent leaders that, we're hiring those people with lived experience, putting them through a family leadership academy, giving them the tools that they need, developing them and their skills that they already have. I've even heard some people, after they've reunified with their children, say, my peer support person saved my life. I've heard that many times. Isn't that powerful, hearing that? Like, wow, this person saved my life. And without that person, when they just had, their caseworker to deal with, there was still stuff going on that was unresolved, and that healing may not have happened. They might not have got those tools that they needed to be successful. But man, I love the peer support and the family engagement and doing that real work.
Tony Parsons.
The fact that someone felt comfortable saying, my peer support person saved my life, I think that's super grounding for us to remember the work that we do in child welfare is about saving lives in some capacity. And Geraldo, I also know that you do a lot in this space in terms of peer support programs. So could you kind of just give us an idea of the different kinds of peer supports you're familiar with, or some sort of mentoring roles, right, that we see in child welfare that have been successful?
Geraldo Pilarski, Parent Partner Program Administrator from New Hampshire Division for Children, Youth, and Families.
Yeah, so there are different models. I mean, as you mentioned, peer support is now something that agencies are really looking at as a powerful way to engage families, to engage with parents, bring them the gift of hope. It's so inspiring to see how this is beginning to really get a lot of traction. And so there are many states that have parent partner programs now, peer support models. Some of them are like within the child welfare agency, and so hiring people with lived experience. They are on staff and they are out there helping, providing that peer-to-peer support. There are other models, and these are contracted to providers. And in this instance, parent partners are within a service provider. That's who is hiring them. This is who is training them, and then matching them with families. But there is another program model that is quite interesting. It is within the justice system, the court system. So that is an interesting model because you have parent partners partnering with the court system to help parents navigate the court system with some support, and they work closely with attorneys for parents. And each of these models have some advantages and also some disadvantages, if you will. So the models that are within the child welfare, one of the big advantages is that the parent partners are right there close with the agency staff, and they can really partner and work together, do a lot of strong teaming. One of the disadvantages is that the families can confuse the parent partners as being part of the system. And that can be a barrier. For those that are in an agency, right, the advantage is that now they are not associated with the child welfare system, but the irony there is that sometimes the teaming doesn't work as well with child welfare. And so all of these models, they really are really powerful because they all have that commonality of bringing hope to a parent, to a family that is just feeling so disempowered and disenfranchised. And I remember a parent sharing that her case was going to termination of parental rights. And she's in a meeting in the community, and she's talking very frustrated and angry how, she may lose her kids. And another parent that was there said, "Have you asked for a parent partner? Are you getting peer-to-peer support?" And then she said, "No, I don't know. What is that?" And so the parent said, "Well, you should ask your worker, say, I want a parent partner." And that's what she did. And her case that was already going through termination of parental rights turned around. She said, "I met my parent partner. She lit the fire inside me. She made me believe that I actually could change." And that's powerful. And she started working, she started doing certain things. And at the next hearing, she's like, "Your Honor, here's the things I have done." And the judge is like, "Okay." We paused the so-called TPR, and mom is going to have, 3 months, and let's see where we are at. And she reunified. So that, to me, that's so powerful. And I think all of these different models, they bring that gift of hope, and they create the space, the safe space for parents to connect with someone they really trust that can really then help them see the light and kind of how to navigate.
Tony Parsons.
The fact that having that peer support turned this woman's life around and, stopped which is, one of the saddest things that can happen is, termination of parental rights. And that's me speaking as an adoptee. Like, I know that my birth parents had to go through that. And I love my family, but I can only imagine how hard that must have been. To say that they stopped it in the process and reversed it and they reunified, which is the case goal for so many children, and unfortunately it just doesn't happen. I mean, that speaks to just how powerful this work is and how powerful peer-to-peer is. So thank you for sharing that, Geraldo. I kind of want to pivot just a little bit to understand, like, what does it actually take, for peer supports to actually work in child welfare, or like for an agency to establish that? And Latrice, I know that is something you've been doing really good work on. So I'd love for you to kind of chime in here.
Latrice LaCour, State Foster Care and Guardianship Manager from Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services.
So for our parent partners, we have included them at our state office level. And we really have them vet our policy, right? Because of course, the words that we use are really important, and how we speak about parents are really important. So we use our parent partners in an alternative additional method of having them reading our policy, and the way we speak about parents. And I know some things seem obvious, right? But after years and years of writing the same thing over and over, you don't really notice. And I know some of the terms that we had were substance abusing parents, right? And they changed it and said, no, they're just parents. They use substances. And I was like, wow, the way we describe people, right? That was just one of many things, right, that we were able to get changed. But it's really important on how we talk about families. And it's going to determine how we treat our families. And so, and including changing our policies and updating them to really get the point of what we're talking about, like our parent handbook. We were able to change that. We had some different terms in there that we thought were important, but there were a lot of things that were missing. And our parent partners were able to say, like, explain to me what my attorney is supposed to be doing, right? And it seems something obvious, right, that everybody knows what an attorney does. But in the Sing case, it is very different, right? And those kind of things matter. So I think really having the peer support, having them apply to different programs, and even different practices and teaching and engaging with young caseworkers, and adding that empathy to it, I think is really helpful as well. So, when our parent partners are working with our caseworkers, they're not, quote, clients, right? And so they hear them. They really hear them, and they can apply that knowledge to the clients that they are working with every day.
Tony Parsons.
I love that. I mean, you said something that I think is so critical that I think we overlook sometimes, is our words really matter. How we describe the people that we're working with really make a difference. I remember when I started doing child welfare work, many, many years ago. I'm not going to tell you how long I've been doing it, but long enough to say that we used to be called troubled youth. And now we say youth with experience in foster care, right? We're no longer defined by the experience that was forced upon us. And just, to come even that far. So I really appreciate that point. And Kayla, I also want to tag you in here because I also know that you're doing some great work in this space of really trying to bring peer-to-peer to be a sustainable thing that agencies are able to incorporate.
Kayla Sampson, Family Wrap Hawaii parent partner from Epic Ohana.
So in Hawaii, our parent partner program is not necessarily in the state level yet. Of course, that's something that we're trying to work on and build in, but we are contracted with the state, right? We're there to, number one, uplift parent voice and uplift family voice and putting families in the center, but just trying to bridge the gap in between, the trust building and the fear between the department and the families, right? We're there from the very beginning, right? From the first child welfare involvement. And I noticed that is the most critical time, because at that point, that's where, you either can get the engagement of the families or not. A lot of times families navigating the child welfare system, their hardest part is the fact that they're alone. They feel alone, right? They feel like they have to conquer it on their own. And so peer support really, I feel like, balances out, right? It carries out that power dynamic. Parent partners are there to encourage them in a way that, yeah, I'm on your team. I want to uplift your voice, but I also want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to make sure you get your family back. And sometimes it's about building the clarity, because when they come into the system, most families, they don't even know what's happening, or like all they can think about is that I was a bad parent, or I did something wrong and now my children are taken away. And so peer support is just there to bring clarity, right? Talk about what it is. What is a service plan? What is the next steps, right? What are the things that you have to do? And literally it looks like a hand-holding process from the beginning, right? So we're there, we're hand-holding, we're walking them through the steps, and then encouraging them to, to reach out to the different services that they need to, uplifting their voices in spaces that they might feel insecure or scared to talk about, what their needs are. And our hopes is that through that process and through that modeling, that it encourages them to start feeling more strong and to uplift their own voice and advocate for themselves to the point where they're navigating in the steering wheel of their own car, right? And we're just sitting in the car with them, going along for the ride. I think we get the buy-in from the department, I feel like, when they see the transformation of families wanting to engage more, right? Families that are staying connected instead of going off on a tangent and not being able to get a hold of them. You're seeing them being able to stay engaged and be engaged. Or even there are times where it's like there is a mix up or mess up that happens within the family, and having that peer support there, instead of them going off on a tangent and being like, okay, I messed up and now I'm just gonna hide and run. The peer support is there to literally be there and be like, it's okay, you're okay, a mess up happens. These are the next steps that we're gonna take to be able to get you back on track. Yeah, let's not dwell in it, let's not sit in it. Yes, we have to communicate about it and take the next steps, but know that this is not the end, right? And that there is forward movements. And when the department sees that there is that communication and that trust and that building right then and there, it creates, I feel like, the department to work harder, right, for these families and want to be there for provide more support for their families in that case.
Tony Parsons.
I mean, that was fantastic. That was super encompassing. And I think you touched on two really good points that I really want to raise. Is first, that when families are going through the child welfare system or they're just getting in contact, I mean, you kind of mentioned they don't even know what's going on, right? I mean, we work in this space, all of us, and I think there are days we're like, what are we doing? So you can only imagine what it's like for someone who's not even in that space full time. And so I remember calling it alphabet soup, hearing all the acronyms, all these terms that are really important that a family might not understand, right? And so having someone who can understand that with them, walk with them, is so important. And I think the second point you kind of raised is like, we're doing with, not for, right? There's this certain level of accountability that is still incumbent on the family to do the things they need to do. But there's another person who isn't a supervisor, who doesn't have some sort of power dynamic with them, who's kind of lording it over them, say, you got to do X, Y, Z, right? It's doing with. You use the analogy of being in a car. I think that's really perfect, right? We're in the car with you. You are driving that vehicle. We are there to support you. And that's the benefit of having peer-to-peer, is like you just have another person who's there supporting you, not being a backseat driver, but being someone who's rocking out those tunes with you, singing that bad karaoke, the whole nine. And that's the kind of support that we need, this formalized or informal model of just being there and holding that space and supporting in a non-judgmental capacity. So I absolutely love peer-to-peer supports, and I love everyone's perspectives on that. I do want to give just a few seconds here for everyone to kind of have any final thoughts on peer-to-peer supports they want to lift up, because I know this topic is something that is new and exciting. I think it's something that's going to be here to stay in the child welfare system. So whoever wants to start with their final thoughts on peer support, please do so.
Eddie Torres.
So I'd like to say peer-to-peer support has created for many people a sense of belonging, where people feel marginalized, where they feel less than, dehumanized. You have someone reaching out to them that was there or can understand and can really talk to them on their level and give them that encouragement to start doing that work that needs to be done, because they're important, they matter, right? And that sense of belonging is huge. So many people are hurt and traumatized, and peer support can be very tremendous in helping those people feel part of the community and knowing their value and their sense of worth.
Geraldo Pilarski.
To me, this is such a gift to the families. It's rehumanizing the system and the relationships. It's literally transforming the child welfare system. It's like, for me, I'm over the moon when I see colleagues that once were, there and they needed our support, but now they're at a table with us and they are doing this amazing work, and they share the same mission that I have, that our division has, which is to support children, young people, and families to thrive, and seeing their passion to that and how they are really committed to that, and how they themselves also see and share my perspective, which is I'm just so honored to serve my communities, my people, in whatever role I have in government. We're fundamentally changing the way government interacts with families, because the parent partners, they bring that powerful lived experience. They bring the humanity, right? They really help us reconnect with that, and that's really powerful. That's something that is going to have a real lasting impact, and there's so much hope in that. And we're now really looking for peer support models for young people, for foster parents, for relative caregivers, because all of us need support at times, right? We need someone that we can trust and connect with at a deeper level.
Latrice or Kayla, any final thoughts?
Kayla Sampson.
Yeah, I just want to say that peer support definitely is needed everywhere. Peer support not only gives support to the family, but it also gives accountability to the peer, to the parent, right? And being accountable for yourself and continuing to not have the recidivism and continuing to be able to stand strong in changing and having a healthy life and being accountable for other families have definitely continued to support me in my journey of recovery in every type of way. Staying out of child welfare involvement, staying out of addiction, staying out of domestic violence relationships. It allows me to be accountable to self, be accountable to others. And it's so gratifying when you are there being able to support a family through their deepest, lowest times, watching them be able to grow and thrive and mature. And not only that, but to make the decision to also be a peer support and watch them support other people has been life-changing. And I feel like that is the piece that's been missing all along, that continues families to re-entering in the system, right? It will help prevent the reoccurrence happening over again. And just being able to like how Geraldo said, see the humanity in people and look at them for who they are and what they are and not what's on a piece of paper. So definitely has been life-changing for our community in Hawaii, for sure. And we already see it statistic-wise, our Native Hawaiian families not entering into the system as much. So it's definitely been a huge difference in here where we're from.
Tony Parsons.
I'd love to hear it. That's fantastic. I want to thank you on behalf of the panelists, and we'll leave it there.
Visuals of the panelists fades into visuals of two logos presented on the screen. The first logo is for the Children's Bureau. The second logo is for Capacity Building Center for States.
Now that you've had an opportunity to listen to this discussion, bring your team together to see how what you've heard can help develop and strengthen peer support programs at your agency. Take some time to listen to the follow-up videos and additional resources to learn more about family empowerment and engagement.